So I'm trying to get all my cords right because, you know, my phone is never charged up. So wait to the people.
Hi.
Yeah. So when Brooke comes, I'm gonna set that up there. But so you do all of this stuff. What made you decide to want to run for school board president?
Well, I'm from here, born and raised in Savannah, Georgia. I'm a product of the school system. And when we got back here, we started working. We went to PTA meetings. My husband was the vice president of the PTA, and I was the treasurer of the PTA. And we just got into the school, started talking to the teachers, started supporting them however, we could. And as we continued our career here working in Savannah with the schools, I realized that there was some stuff that I was afforded when I went to school here that I did not see in the current school system. I found myself as a parent frustrated, fighting for my children, helping other parents, trying to be knowledgeable for them. And I believe that it is now time for our generation to step up. We're the 30-somethings trying to make a difference. If not now, then when?
Right.
If I have an opportunity to fight for the 38,000 students like I fight for my children, then I'm going to take that opportunity. So I'm here to try to make a difference in our county.
What are some of the things that you see are wrong with the school system? And we can talk about this for me all day, but what do you see?
Right. Some of the biggest things I see is lack of support for our staff, our teachers, communications to our parents, and lack of progress for our students. So every day that our kids go to school, we should be moving them forward. We should think about how can we make them, productive citizens of society. How can we make sure that they have the education that they need to compete, with other students across Georgia, with other students across the United States, globally. Mm-hmm. We are in a global world where our students have to have skills so that they can stand on their own 2 feet, when they graduate. So as a mom who always pushes her kids to do well, I want to ensure that we are giving them those skills. I know I make sure that my children have those skills. I know that not every parent is afforded the opportunity to go into the schools like I'm able to do, or to have enrichment.
Or we've already said my disclaimer to the white families, honestly, because when my son was in school, starting out in pre-K, we had behavior issues, and we had just a lack of structure in his classroom, and they wanted to label him very quickly. Right. And it just so happened one of my tax clients was a kindergarten special ed teacher. She said, "Do you have an IEP for him?" And I'm like, "What is that?" Mm-hmm. She's like, "My white kids have it all the time. And it's just a structural, individual education plan for your student. They're going to try and push that medicine on them all the time. Right. And that's not always the best scenario for them." And so when I got to delve more into it or something like that, so we built it into his schedule where he would, follow certain prompts, and then he would get a break. Right. It worked tremendously, right. Tremendously. And then when we went to St. Louis, came back, he attended Brock, mm-hmm. and it was just a nightmare. Right. It was a nightmare. So I pulled him out of there to put him in a Bible Baptist for a year. But my concern to the teacher was, I'm able to do this for my son. What about the rest of these kids whose parents can't afford it, or they don't have the resources available, especially time, to really focus in on what's going on with their education? Because if I call you and I hear a video playing in the background, and that's like 4 or 5 days a week, what are you really teaching the kids? And
you're absolutely right about parents being able to afford to take their children out of the school system, right? Mm-hmm. So education is not a privilege. It is a right for each and every one of our students. So we should have a public school system that caters to all of our students, that meets each student where they are,
Right.
so that we can say, okay, you're starting here, but I know I can get you here. And not every student is going to start at the same level. Not every student is going to finish at the same level. However, we need to make sure that we are doing the best for each and every one of our students. So I am a very big proponent of differentiating instruction, individualized learning, letting teachers close their doors and be as subject matter experts, and teaching to whatever class that they have that year, because of course it's going to change over the years. There is mountains of studies about how poor kids and minority kids are. As a parent, I have been concerned about the setup of our schools, like the lack of diversity in our schools. Nowhere in the country, after you become an adult, will you go and not be able to be around someone who isn't like you. So we do our kids a disservice when we send them to schools, and it's 98% one race, or we're not having a diverse and multicultural experience for our students. So I get that, and as a parent, I am concerned about that.
Right.
I went to schools with all different types of races, different kinds of kids from different neighborhoods, and I had a very enriching experience. So that is why I have hope for our system, because I see where it was, I see where it is in math, and we still do our kids a disservice. We have to make sure that we're catering to the whole student.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just lost my question. So the lack of diversity in schools. Do you think that's by design here in Savannah?
Savannah has a long history of segregation and steering away from what is proposed to us. So we know that the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1954, and we know that we didn't complete our desegregation of schools until the 1970s here in Savannah. I implore you to go look at the Civil Rights Museum on Martin Luther King. It tells you so much information. Is by design. I can't, as a parent, sit here and tell you that the best decisions were made for our kids.
Right.
So we have to make sure that all of the policies that we're putting forth, everything that we're doing, is meant to enhance the educational experience of our kids.
I agree. So, what is it that you offer over your opponents?
That's a good question. So, one of the things that we offer, or I offer, is that I am a user of the Savannah Chatham County school system. I have 3 children who are in the school system. We know how to navigate through this system because we are users of the system. How much stake we have in something. And I will tell you, I have 1, 2, 3 stakes in the system. And so I will work to make sure that this system works for my children and it works for all of the other children. I'm a parent who wants the best for all of the students in Chatham County, including my own. So my decisions are based upon the fact that we need to have a better education for these students, because I have 3 students who are in the school system.
Tell me a little bit more about your kids.
So we have a 7-year-old. He is our last. He'll be in the school system for another 11 years. And we have a budding middle school dancer who's just accepted into Garrison. They're all at Garrison now. And we have a middle schooler. And
Services.
right. So our first daughter, she was tested. She had an awesome teacher at Schumann Elementary School, and she suggested that Madison be tested for gifted. Our second student, we were in Atlanta, still in Georgia, and we're a military family, a former military family. So we moved to Atlanta second semester, and what they told us is that they did not have enough data on my child. Now, I had already talked to her teachers before in kindergarten and first grade, and they said, you know, your child is very bright. You know, when you get the opportunity, get her tested. Her teacher in Atlanta did not want to do that. But I read we had so much support from those teachers. But had we not gone into the school and said, I know my child is capable of this, searching out, you know, information, talking to, you know, the gifted specialist and saying, what can we do to push him to his full potential? He would have been, you know, kind of left by on the sideline as well.
I think that's one of my biggest issues. Not only that the gifted process is just completely changed now, because it was search when I was in school, and we just went through the whole IQ test, and everybody did the ITBS test, but it was a lot more streamlined, a lot more simple. But now it just seems that
often underrepresented in this arena, because when, you know, our children tend to act out, it's not because they're bored or they need to be challenged, it's because they have a behavior issue. So I always tell parents, when your child is acting out, when it seems like behavior is an issue and, you know, their grades are off the charts, I don't think they're being challenged enough. I try to tell parents that you have to advocate for your child. Don't let them tell you no, because when you listen to that, you know, it could be a detriment to your child. And yes, the gifted process is a little long. It can be stressful, but I personally have had very good
bureaucracy that prioritizes administration over education.
Right.
And that was something you wanted to combat. Give me a little bit more about what you mean by that.
The top-heavy atmosphere of education. So policies and procedures that are passed at the top level that expand administration, or the administration down at the Board of Education, the administration at the state level, those don't always have the effects that we want, you know, in the classroom. We can see that with No Child Left Behind, that, you know, that was a detriment to our students. So when we have those policies and procedures that expand, you know, at things at the administrative level, and teachers' expansion of wraparound services for students. You talked about your child and, you know, his IEP. Okay, we need more counselors. We need more people to, you know, be able to.
Psychologists, therapists.
Exactly.
God.
So expansion at the ground level. Let's try that. Let's try getting teachers more support, students more support, parents more support, so that we can get the services that our kids need, so that we can catch them, you know, when they're lagging behind, or push them when they need to be pushed a little bit more. So I know that at the state level, we pass a lot of legislation, and that has a direct effect on our schools here. And so as a result, we're trying to make policy. So I am a big proponent of, you know, paying them their worth. I think teachers are some of the most valuable things that are assets that we have in our community. We need to pay them what they're worth. You know, I can tell you, I have seen at least one of my children's teachers working over the summer. They're working over the summer because they can't afford not to work. You know, so they're buying supplies out of their own pockets. So where are we giving the support? You know, are we going to make this a top-heavy educational system, or are we going to put, you know, funds and support at the ground level so that we can make sure our teachers have what they need? Because a teacher who is supported, that's going to translate into better classrooms.
New printers and whatnot. She said they brought all of that old broken down stuff to the new school, and now they have them sharing equipment, and they said if they want to get a better printer, they would have to buy it themselves. Like, that's one thing to say buy school supplies, go to Barnett's and get some, arts and crafts. You're talking about equipment here. Why would I come out of my own pocket to spend $400 plus for something that should be readily available for me to do my job? I wouldn't go to anybody else's job and expect to have to bring my own equipment, my own assets. Those are assets. Right. And why would I be expected to do that? I think that I don't know, how are you going to work with the rest of your board?
The numbers will add up. So if we make sure teachers have things like printers and paper, and they have the access to copiers, because that's a whole nother can of worms for teachers. Mm-hmm. If we make sure that the teachers have those things, then they're not worried about those things. They're focused on teaching. Right. So support your teachers, and it will translate to better scores. Don't start me, on testing. We over test.
I agree.
But the numbers it'll translate into a better education for our kids. Some things brief well. They look good on paper. Like, the printing center, that looks good.